Health initiatives. So Hustle has the outreach component for youth, but I just need to be clear that Health Initiative for Men doesn't have any youth-specific programs for support. We do a young gay men's youth mentorship course called Totally Outright, and that's a great program. That's a series that runs over a month time, but that's more a skills building and how to be more sex savvy and how to be more empowered in your community. So we're not talking about any actual supports for youth. So we refer to Family Services. We have a partnership with Directions Youth Drop-In. It's really important, our protocols and procedures in the online culture. So like I said, we jumped online, but we didn't just do it and kind of go blindly. Well, we did a little. But we tried to have our policy and procedure in place, just things around confidentiality, anonymity, security, respect, these things around how, you really can't ever protect those things absolutely in an online setting. So really just a written protocol and policy around the very fact that we're taking those things into account when we're moving forward. They're intended to guide our efforts and highlight the best practices, and they're constantly evolving. I'm part of policy development at HIM, simply because Hustle brought a laundry list of interesting challenges that HIM had never had to look at before, working with youth, working with vulnerable populations, online work. HIM did do some online stuff, but with Hustle it was a chance to really think outside the box. And it's important to, the internet changed. Oh, it just changed again. Oh, Twitter, tweet, twat. It's twat. Do you say twat? Rap changing by the second, right? So we need to be there. It's a conversation and it's a community that we need to be a part of every day, every minute. And if we're not, then we're actually doing a disservice. So it's always that, and we're not on it every day. We're working up to that, right? Again, with the funding to specifically support the efforts. So we reflect, HIM's work reflects current evidence-based research. HIM is big on research partnerships, and I'll talk a little bit briefly about two of those that we're involved in a few slides. Understanding and incorporating the perspectives of men who have sex with men online. So again, when we talk about gay, it's quite broad. It's including the experiences of other men who have sex with men. That may or may not be men who are engaged in sex work, who may or may not consider themselves part of that continuum, but we allow them to identify for themselves what their needs are. And then we engage and enlist a lot of trained professionals and services and supports in community to assist our population. Hustle has goals. It's always good. Look at this. My favorite graphic. The goalpost. Look at that goal. Love it. Our short-term goals is to fine-tune our net reach practices. We want to reduce isolation as much as possible for those men and those youth like I spoke about. We want to increase public awareness of Hustle now that we're at Health Initiative for Men. I think we've finally done that. The transition from peers has finally happened. We want to share our resources and provide referrals and facilitate health promotion in community. Our long-term goals are professional development training, gathering data and information, highlighting our best practices of what's working well, what's challenging, what needs to be adapted, developing internet outreach training guides, which we're actually in the process of doing with SOLOS, that Safe Online Outreach Society I spoke about. We have a contract with PLEA, who's a youth organization, to develop an online outreach training module and curriculum for frontline service providers who are working with youth. So that's huge. There'll be actually a model of best practice on how to do. I think a lot of organizations want to go online, but they're scared. And I think a lot of the supports are actually already online, but they're doing it in a way which may not be as responsible as they could be. And we want to expand our outreach efforts into new venues. Another big thing that we do, that I do, is civic engagement. So it's representing the male voice and experience of the industry and promoting diversity and inclusion. So you've heard about a lot of groups, a lot of committees, a lot of activism that's going on in the community, municipal government, federal government, provincial and federal government, the enforcement piece, sex worker, action groups, coalitions, UBC panels, right? Wherever we can get a chance to actually make sure that the male voice is represented when we talk about sex work, because men are sex workers, men are in the industry, and some of it looks different than women, and some of it the same, but no doubt they're there. And so a lot of the work I do is just keeping that experience fresh in people's minds so that you never forget that it's everyone and everywhere. Next steps, almost done. Community engagement, so like I talked about, one of the big successes of being able to come to Health Initiative for Men is to engage community. One of the things I've taken on at the organization is volunteer training, where we have an upcoming volunteer training HIM Institute, we're calling it, and that's the next week starting. And so we're taking, guys that are in the community who are interested in learning more about the organization and the work, come in and do a volunteer training, and then they pick the different program that they're interested in volunteering for. So Hustle being one of many programs, there's groups and counseling and venues and festivals and all sorts of different things, social marketing campaigns that HIM does that people can get involved with. So that's been really huge for us to expand our team to 7 or 8 volunteers to help us. And when I talk about outreach, we're expanding. So Hustle's part of a broader outreach strategy that's being developed at HIM. So we're reaching men who have sex with men, bathhouses, parks. We're putting on dirty talk seminars where you can come and you can talk about the taboo sex that you're having in a bathhouse setting with other guys who are wearing towels, or maybe they're, whatever. We're some of the topics for the dirty talk sessions were fisting and ass play and cum swap, like really going there and really talking about the sex that we all have, but that maybe we don't have a chance to talk about it, right? We just do it and then we don't talk about it. So just some of the interesting things that we're doing.
Your virgin ears.
Research. HIM is big on research partnerships, which is another success that we've been able to tap into. For the longest time, I always talked with Kate Shannon, Dr. Kate Shannon, who's the head of the Gender and Sexual Health Initiative at the Center for Excellence in HIV/AIDS, around if there was ever an opportunity. They've been doing a female-identified sex work research around health impacts in the community called Aisha. And I said, we worked together for many years, and I said, if there's ever an opportunity to do it from the male perspective, because there's little to no research out there around men in the industry in Canada, what their health risks are, what their realities are, who they are, and how they work. And so finally, last year we got some funding, and so we're able to do CHAPS. CHAPS is a community health assessment for men who purchase and sell sex. So not just the seller, but also the buyer. So very cool to include the buyer piece, which is largely ignored. There is some materials here for CHAPS. We're winding down our qualitative, which is 60 interviews, and then we're going to look at a larger quantitative, or is that the other way around? Quantitative? Yes. No, I'm right. I'm newer to research. But I do have some cards here, but anyone who takes any cards, if you know somebody who might be interested, we're only looking for buyers now. So if you know anybody out there or anybody in your networks who might buy sex and might be interested, then pass along a card. But no sellers at this point, just buyers. And then Spaces, which Raven talked about, which Raven is involved in. And Spaces, similar in nature to CHAPS, but different in that it's indoor, it's off-street, and they're also looking at all the support staff around sex work. So your drivers and your managers and your booking agents and your security and all those things. So getting that lens of, who is it that supports the industry and how do you make it safe and what do you need to know? So a very important study. Materials here for that. And that's UBC. And we're constantly looking at sustainability in terms of funding. We've landed well with HIM because we tapped into some coastal health dollars, so we have a little bit more stability than we had when we were looking for project funding, which was every year there was the dance. Develop and diversify and adapt our program to best meet the needs of our guys and our youth who are working or exchanging services, or who are men who have sex with men who are identifying along the spectrum. So we want them to come and identify for us what their needs are. And that be Hustle. Thank you.
So before we get to questions, Velvet wants to do a little demonstration of day in the life, I believe.
Okay, well, you're going to turn it that way. So this all came about as a result of one of our first.
You got pipes growing out there?
You handled that so well, Jason.
So this came about as a result of one of our earliest ones where we decided that we were going to wear something that was indicative of the work we did. Now, I'm just going to get started, and you all think that we're sitting around looking glamorous at home waiting for the phone to ring. It's so not the case. At any rate, I'm going to get on with this, and then maybe you can figure out the kind of work that I do. Ring, 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 ring. Hello? Hi, how are you doing? Oh, you're at the phone booth down the street. Great. Okay, well, the address is 6969 Lovers Lane. And when will you be here? Oh, in about 5 minutes. That's fabulous. Okay, I'll see you soon. Back! Shit! Shut up, I can't believe this fucking crap. Oh my god. Fucker. This usually takes 10 minutes to do when they come through the door because it's a time waster, you know what I mean? They're bothered. You're on the floor watching the lipstick.
Yes.
It's a little hard to be in control of, 300 people in a room? So anyway, people ask, how did you get into this line of work? To be honest, you're going to hide that stupid microphone, I guess. Jason's always so worried that I'm going to get him fired from his job for this portion of the whole thing. Does this make my ass look fat, though? Really? Anyway, I've always had an avid interest in sex, so let me tell you first of all, I am a woman who is transsexual, obviously post-operative, and I am a professional dominatrix. Okay, so people always ask, well, how is it that that has to do with sex? Because there's the old guard, new guard, and if you're involved in the community in any way, shape, or form, you know that there is a very clear difference between old and new guard. So all I have to tell you is, if I can't stand like this in front of a client and command attention looking this hot, tell me this isn't fucking sexual? Give me a break, right? So anyway, I'd always entertained thoughts of entering into the industry because I've always loved people. At the time I was considering this, I was 22, and that's like maybe 5 years ago. I believe that, you know, we've got a lot of talking to do. Anyway, so I placed lots of ads, and I placed ads through the back of the newspaper in Toronto, and never followed through for the first, I would say, 5 phone calls. So I was very heavily involved in the fetish scene in Toronto. And it just so happened that after one night of being at Fetish Night in Toronto, there I was sitting on a fence, and I'll pretend that this is the fence, downtown through Cawthra Square, and I hope I don't knock this water over. Anyway, middle of summer, 3 o'clock in the morning, sucking on a popsicle. A van drives up, rolls down the window, and there I am. Hey, you want to go for a ride? Okay, sure. And in retrospect, I could have gotten myself into a lot of trouble, but at the time I wasn't thinking that way. So what do? I'll hop into this van. And I have this older gentleman telling me that he wants to take me to a parkade behind the Pantages Theatre in Toronto where the Phantom of the Opera was playing. So if any of you are history buffs, you'll know that that was quite some time ago. So we go to this parkade, and of course I still have my popsicle. Listening one to, well, I'm going to pay you, and all I want you to do, because you have such great legs, is to open the door and slowly get out of the van on the passenger side. Okay. Click, click, click. He gets out of the van, goes around, he says, now when I knock on the door before he got out, I want you to just open up and slowly get out of the van. Okay. Knock, knock, knock. Door opens, and there's me. And there he was, sitting on a piece of cardboard, just beating it like there was no tomorrow. And it was done in 2 seconds flat. Or I was $250 richer, and he drove me back to where he picked me up. And wow, I thought to myself, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. Needless to say, it wasn't as easy as that from there on in. We had to think about things like advertising avenues. Where could we advertise without getting caught? The terminology. Once you started advertising, you started to meet a lot of friends. Started to network with individuals already in the industry as to what you could say, what you couldn't say, so you wouldn't get in trouble with the police, authorities, all these different things, bring the heat down, that kind of thing. As I was growing and learning about the industry, I was also learning about technique and different things that would pertain to the type of work that I was doing. There's a lot to know. It's not just a simple thing of picking up a whip and hitting someone's backside. Absolutely not. There's books out there. At the time, we didn't have the internet, believe it or not. And I'll stop on the history lesson very shortly and how old I really am. Anyway. And so we, networked, and through the folks at Northbound Leather in Toronto, I started to learn a lot about the industry, where I could connect through groups and munches and lunches and all these other different things, so we could share knowledge and we could be a part of each other's worlds. And it was really, really exciting. Along that way, I also started to learn about stigma, stereotypes, folks' preconceived notions. Where I was learning about the industry, and learning about technique, and learning about anatomy and all these other different things, I was also learning that it became very clear and fast that I didn't have a lot of friends that I could talk to. I certainly didn't have family members that I could talk to about anything to do with it. And I was still, and still am, a hairstylist. So, the world of hairstyling, and as Raven had said before, most of the people who do have degrees or anything certificate-wise afterwards, we all do in pretty much relative art fields. So, yes, I have a fashion design degree. I've got all kinds of certificates when it comes to internet and web-based ideas and website construction, understanding all those different things. But, so there I was wondering, well, how do I talk to my friends about it? So I found very quickly that my friends happened to be individuals who were in the industry as well. We got to know about that, and then as we started to liaise and become stronger amongst ourselves, we all started to learn that there was a lot of violence towards sex workers. People were getting hurt all over the place. It was really quite frightening, and so we started doing different things in Toronto in regards to self-defense classes, and teaching those to other individuals, and having individuals who were black belts and all kinds of different things and different vocations come and teach us privately, so we were all putting our money towards that. And so I can honestly say, don't fuck with me, because you're in for a real good ride if you want to. I'm pretty good at that. But I do want to say as well that violence has occurred to me, and it hasn't been in the context of sex work. It happens to be just walking down the street. I've been stabbed, I've been knifed, I've been slashed, I've had full beer bottles smashed over my head, I've had chunks of flesh bitten out of the inside of my right thigh. Ended up in the hospital several times and occasions with the police, you know, telling me that maybe it was the amount of makeup that I was wearing. With nurses and doctors not wanting to treat me because of the work that I did when they got to know what it was. Taking me out of the emergency wards and treating me in the hallway with rubber gloves on because they didn't want the other patients that were in the emergency ward with gunshot wounds and stab wounds and beer bottle wounds and drunken fights to get sick. So the stigma that came along with that was really, really great and really, really strong. And how I started to learn that to be out loud and proud, I had to be honest with myself, and I had to be honest with those that were in my personal life as well, and that meant my family. And that also meant my friends. My friends were very much on board long prior to my family actually came on board, because for all intents and purposes, those that matter don't care, and those that care don't matter, right? So the way that my family found out was kind of, in a manner of speaking, quite hilarious. My aunt showed up one day with the newspaper that I advertised in one of the areas where I advertised, and the ad was, you know, this tall by this wide, and a picture of me basically sitting like this looking at the camera, black and white. And she opened it to the page, laid it out on the coffee table, and said, "How much did you pay for the ad?" What am I supposed to say? I don't know what you're talking about, is actually what I did say. So about a half an hour later, she goes, "I want to get back to the ad." And so I asked her, "Well, why are you looking at this? And why do you have this newspaper in front of you?" And what she said to me was, "Well, we're thinking of doing a swingers club at the house we have downtown. What do you think?" And I said, "That's perfect." But as for how much I paid for the ad, that's between me and the publisher, none of your business. Anyway. So as time grew and went on, I amassed quite a collection of toys, furniture, and all these different things. And I'm not kidding when I say that I've got over $40,000 worth of toys, furniture, and equipment that caters to a fetishistic lifestyle. And it's all insured on the advice of my insurance agent. And it's considered a collection. So that's the way of us getting around a little bit of a creative insurance, you know, plan. I invested my money wisely. I made a lot of money. I still make a lot of money. So along the route of all these different toys and things like that, it started to happen organically, that I started to learn about the products that we were putting on ourselves, putting in ourselves, and I'm not just talking about the lotions, potions, and lubes, but I'm also talking about the vibrators. I'm talking about the dildos. I'm talking about the clips and clamps and things that we use for catering to different lifestyles. I'm talking about the synthetic ropes. I'm talking about phthalates and bisphenols that are in products all over the place. I'm talking about melamine paint. And we've all heard about the classic examples of these things being put into baby milk and baby chew toys, all these other different things that, thank God, Canada has now finally come on board with it to get a lot of these things made illegal. So my knowledge of that brought me to Little Sisters, downtown bookstore, and I'm also working at, well, they're not a bookstore anymore because books are kind of going the way of the dinosaur. And so I'm also working at Sweet Adult Boutique, which is their other location down on Broadway and Granville. So I do research and development in terms of products and get up on platform and talk to people about the good, the bad, the ugly of the sex toy industry. And currently I'm also working on a, well, new lecture series that's going to be part of the one that we do called Totally Anal already. Because as you know, Little Sisters was very much in the forefront of trying to get information out there to the general public and fighting Canada Customs so that we would have access to the literature we wanted to for consenting adults. So my latest venture that I'm working with them happens to be sex and the aging, and what you can do to make your sex better, because as far as I'm concerned, as we all mature, I hate the word aging, so I prefer to use maturity, that sex should be a part of our lives right up until the day that our shoes are permanently parked by the door. I think it's important, I think it's very much a part of everything and who we all are. And aside from that, my activism has brought me to Matthew and Raven. I was also invited to come and sit on the board of, as I mentioned before, the National Working Group for Prostitution and Sex Work Law Reform, now the Canadian Alliance. So we've got a full plate ahead of ourselves for this year prior to what the government is going to do, and we still don't know what it is they're going to do. There are some recommendations that are sort of filtering our way, but we are out there educating MPs and politicians about what would be we think a good course of action. It's not going to be a wanton free-for-all, we know that. But, you know, based on the New Zealand model, we would like to sort of implement that, but make it a uniquely Canadian model. So that's what I'm working on. And aside from getting out there and dealing with folks that are in the industry as well, because people, in terms of fighting for transsexual rights as well, I made the history books quite a few, 20 years ago, when I fought MSP for individuals to make the choice to actually go to the surgeon of their choice to go for their SRS, which is surgical reassignment surgery. So that was basically something that ended up happening that I didn't really think was going to happen. I was thrust into the forefront of political activism, sexual health activism, and with the fetish parties that I was throwing here in Vancouver as well, and most notably, you might remember me from the series Kink that was filmed here. So I was in season 1 of Kink that was filmed, and we think we filmed it about 15 years ago, 12 to 15 years ago. And you can find it out there. I'm a very different person from then, still growing and still presenting and still fighting for the rights of all of our individuals here to be able to have the ability to make our own choices for ourselves when it comes to our own sexual health, freedoms, and awareness. So that, I think, is pretty much it for now.
I know some of you are going to insist on scurrying away. So for those of you that do want to leave or need to leave, please head out now quietly. For everybody else that wants to stick around, we'll maybe do about 20 minutes, half an hour of question and answer. Okay? So if you need to leave, please do so quickly and quietly. Everybody else, stick around.
I shouldn't be saying that.
me.